This exercise is called side lying attitude. So it's leg abduction with external rotation. Although you can keep the leg in a parallel position if you prefer, if that's either easier for you or for sciatic problems. So we're doing this resting on our elbow, although you can do it just from the hand, like this. We're going to make it a little bit easier because the more horizontal the body, the easier this happens to be. So we're going to have that elbow directly under the shoulder. The underneath leg is going to be bent forwards, the knee in front of the hip bent at a 90-degree angle. And then you're going to extend that leg out. So just so you get the alignment, ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, ear. And then you're going to bend that knee backwards. So just making sure that that knee does not come in front of the hip, that it's level with the hip. And we lift it up to hip height. So the knee is kind of there at hip height. Any side lying position propped up on the elbow, you're watching out for this rib sagging and collapsing and this shoulder sagging and collapsing, because clients want to kind of often do this. And sometimes they don't realize. So really you want to think about drawing that rib in using your obliques and really pulling that shoulder back and down. Good scapular and core stability. And again, just watching that the head doesn't take an upright view of the world, so that you're not shortening on this side of the neck, that your head is just slightly inclined to the spine, so level with your spine, shoulders are back and down, and you're placing the hand here. Now this hand is watching for any pelvic rotation, either forwards or back, okay? So we're going to lift that leg up to roughly hip height, okay? Just watching that this knee never comes in front of the hip, okay? And then we're going to externally rotate the leg. So you're going to turn the leg out in the hip socket like this. So it's slightly turned out, but when you do that, make sure you don't rotate the pelvis back. You're going to turn the leg out in the hip socket like this. You're going to lift the leg up and lower it down. You can have the foot pointed or flexed. Lift it up an inch, down an inch. Now you'll probably know you're doing it right because you won't be able to lift any more than an inch. And if you can, it's either because the knee has crept forward or you've sagged or you've rotated. So you've got to really watch all of the stability on this supporting arm. So we can also take the attitude behind, back and forward an inch, back an inch, forward an inch. So you don't have to have the leg turned out. It is harder in a turned out position. You can have it in a parallel position, up an inch, down an inch. And as you lift the leg up, make sure you don't act like a seesaw, because as this leg lifts, it makes you want to press down. So as the leg lifts, really push through that forearm and push yourself away from the floor. Resist that temptation. And as the leg goes back an inch, make sure you don't lean forward. Make sure that you don't expose the ribs. Keep those ribs in nice and tight. So there's really quite a lot to think about in this particular exercise. Okay, Jasmine? So if you want to, let's face this way so you can get a sideways view on this elbow. So this underneath leg is bent forward at 90 degrees. And this top leg, drawing that rib in, that shoulder down and the head kind of down. So often I tell people to look at their wrist, if they had a watch on, to look down at their watch. So it just sort of takes the strain out of this top side of the neck. Then over watch that hip doesn't roll back, because it's a much more comfortable position to be on the fleshy part of your bottom rather than on the bones of the hip. So you're going to bend this knee backwards, and notice this what wants to happen. Clients want to bring that knee in front of the hip. So we really want to keep that knee there. And we're just going to put this hand on this hip just to make sure that there's no rotation forward or back. And then we lift this leg up. Beautiful. So let's just keep that leg in a parallel position. I'm just going to push that hip forward. Beautiful. So we're going to lift up an inch, down an inch. And you've got to watch this exercise. Watch that the knee doesn't creep forward, because these are ways to make it easier. The body naturally wants to cheat, and people are often unconscious of that. And the other thing is, just watch that you don't collapse on that rib. So as that knee lifts up, Jasmine, can you just collapse on that? Yeah. So You've got to often see this. People get lazy, sometimes consciously, but a lot of the time they're unconscious. They don't just realize that they're collapsing. So I'm constantly going around, pulling their ribs away, pulling their shoulders back, pushing their knees back. So we can do this in an externally rotated position. So the knee is just higher than the foot, and then we lift up an inch and down an inch. And you're not going to get any more than that unless the pelvis rolls back or that knee comes forward or you start to collapse. Then we're going to go back an inch. So the knee goes behind the hip extension. So we've got glutes, hammies, and then forward. And when I tell people to come forward, what often happens is they start to actually come in front, knee in front of the hip, and then when they go back, they just come back to here. So the tendency is for the leg to slowly creep forward over a period of time rather than taking the knee back. Now, when I'm pushing that leg back, Jasmine, if you can just pop the ribs, expose the ribs, so let them hang out, and you get this kind of thing happening, which increases that lumbar extension. Or the body sails forward like that. So just watching all of that, because this has got to be really still, okay? And lifting all the way up and all the way down. So the knee's touching the floor. But remember, after that full range movement, we've got end range. Lift, lift, 1 inch up, up, then a static hold. Now in that hold, it means we can't lower the leg anymore. So this is where we can just push the leg back because we do something spicy. So instead of just holding the leg in position, which of course we can, we're free to do, we just do a little bit something spicy. So we keep moving, but we mustn't lower the leg until the exercise is actually over. Now, for those that want to make this a little bit easier, not just because of fitness levels, but because if they're just constantly collapsing and they can't keep their ribs in or their shoulders back, we're going to lie face down. So we're going to turn around and lie on that outstretched arm. So again, this is another variation of the same exercise. Again, that underneath leg is bent forward at 90 degrees. Then we lift the top leg so that the heel is level with the hip, and then we're going to bend that knee back. So we're going to keep it in a parallel position rather than a turn down. Remember the 3 body gaps, ear and shoulder, lengthening the waist, lengthening that thigh in the hip socket so we can lift up and down. Lift up and down. So really small movement. We can also go back and forward. So it's exactly the same exercise, just lying on that outstretched arm, because the more upright you are, the harder it is. So this would be the easier version, the traditional version on your elbow. Or if you wanted to work harder again, you can do it propped up on your hand. Now you're not going to be fully upright, you'll be slightly like this, and you'd have that same exercise from a slightly more upright position here. So there's 3 different variations you can do according to your client's strength and flexibility and ability. The last thing I want to show you, if you can prop yourself up on your elbow again, Jasmine. If they find it difficult to lift the entire leg all together, then what you can do is either an internal or external rotation. So I'm going to keep Jasmine's foot on the floor, and she just lifts the knee and she'll open out and rotate the leg out. Then she'll put the knee back down on the floor. So the foot isn't moving, she's just opening the leg, like opening the pages of a book, without, of course, rolling back. And then she lowers the leg. So that's external rotation of the leg. And she could do the opposite version, internal rotation of the leg. So she lifts the heel, but the knee stays down. Exhale, foot comes up, and again, no movement of that pelvis. Now you'll find some clients are really good at internal rotation, this version, but not so good at external rotation, and vice versa. And there'll be clients that can do both according to how their bones are made up. But that is your side lying attitude.